Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gruff Talk, where each week we take a deep dive into all the ways we can feel better, look better, live better, and age better. I'm your host, Barbara Hannah Grufferman. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that I am a research junkie, and I subscribe to just about every medical, health, and wellness newsletter there is so I can be up to speed on what works and what doesn't work according to the latest science. And then I can share with all of you so together we can age better. And this week, a lot of new fascinating info came my way. So I thought, it's time for a 3+ things you need to know to age better episode, something I like to do every once in a while. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about something that is really, really important. Something that, if it happens to you, could really wreck your life and stop you from aging better. In fact, it's something that could absolutely change your life and maybe even end it a little sooner than planned. It's serious. Falling. I'm recording this episode on Friday, September 23rd, which is the last day of Falls Awareness and Prevention Week, which is the best possible time to bring up my own quick story about how a fall changed my life. And then I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the fall I took just a week or two ago. So when I turned 50, I had just gone through menopause, and I was feeling, as you've heard me say so many times, all of the possible umpies, frumpy, lumpy, and grumpy about the whole thing. It just was not a great, uplifting time in my life. And I really wasn't doing everything and anything right for myself, not getting enough sleep. I wasn't eating the right foods for sure. And I wasn't doing any kind of regular exercise, not at all. Of course, I joke and say, I was lifting my arm to hail a taxi, and that was my exercise. But, when I look back, it really wasn't so very funny. And anyway, I was walking my dog during that kind of pity party time in my life. And I fell over my own 2 feet. I don't even know what I fell on. And, I kind of fell on the sidewalk and put my arm out, as we often do. And my arm broke, as it turns out. And that's when I got my first bone density test. My doctor sent me for my first test. And it showed low bone density, also known as osteopenia. And so at that point, it was a major turning point in my life. If you've ever heard me speak before, listened to this podcast, read anything I've written, you will know that this was a major turning point. It is when I said, wow, this is serious. This is real. This is not, something like a rehearsal. And I have to really get on top of this. I have to really think about, how am I going to live the rest of my life? So in partnership with my healthcare provider, we came up with all the ways I was going to keep my bones where they were and not allow them to progress further to osteoporosis. So that's when I started making sure I was eating all the right foods with calcium and getting enough vitamin D. And I started strength training. And that's also when I started to run. You also have heard my story about the New York City Marathon, running past our house and my daughter saying, I want to see you running it, Mom. And anyway, that's what started. All happened around the same time. So lucky for me, I did take action. Lucky for me, it's worked all these years. And eventually, I joined the board of the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation. I've been on the board for going on 9 years to help spread the word of the importance of bone health for life, whatever your age. So far, so good. My bone density test since then, which I get every 2 years, has kept me squarely in the low bone density category, and I have not progressed to osteoporosis. And that deserves a great big yay! And my well-cared-for bones showed just how tough they really are. Last week, when I went for an 18-mile run, I'm training for the New York City Marathon again, which will be on November 6th, and my training program called for an 18-mile run. Normally, I do these super long training runs with the New York City Galloway Running Group, but I wasn't in New York City at the time, so I put on my running shoes, grabbed my water bottle, and headed out the door at 6:30 a.m., feeling absolutely fantastic. I decided to run a few miles towards the beautiful state park that's not too far away, to run a few miles on the trails. It was during the week, and I knew it'd be nice and quiet and just a wonderful, wonderful run. As soon as I got to mile about 10 and a half and going at it like a really nice, speedy pace for me, I tripped on something in the trail. A tree root, a rock, a twig, who knows? I don't know. My body fell fast and hard on the dirt trail. I mean, I literally had the wind knocked out of me. I had never experienced that before. I heard that expression, getting the wind knocked out of you, but it's never happened to me before. It was quite an experience. Knees, elbows, stomach, all bruised. And bonus, both my elbows were scraped and one had a very bloody gash on it. I'm sorry, I'm being so graphic. I was a mess, alone in the woods. I sat up and started to carefully check each body part, very carefully moving each one of them to make sure nothing was broken. But nope, all my bones were intact. I was just a bloody, bruised, dirty mess, but a very relieved and really a very happy one. I called my husband. Luckily, he was with me, kind of in the area, not running, and asked him to drive over to the state park parking lot with bandages, tape, water, paper towels, and some Neosporin. I had to walk about 2 miles back out of on the trails to get to the parking lot where we were planning on meeting up. When we did meet up together, we checked me over, cleaned me up, bandaged whatever we could. And then crazy or not crazy, I don't know, I continued my run, but not on the trails. I stayed to the ground. I'm sure I looked like a crazy person, all bandaged up, but I felt so happy and so relieved that nothing was broken or even sprained. My bones really came through for me that day. I was lucky because I know it could have been so much worse. I think the big lesson for me was that I probably should stick to walking when I'm on the trails, and for sure be more vigilant whether I'm walking or running. This weekend, I'm running with my running group in New York City, and we're doing a 20-mile run that will take us across all 5 bridges in New York City, including the magnificent and iconic Brooklyn Bridge. It is absolutely my favorite training run route that our running group does every year, and I'm so incredibly grateful that my little fall a little over a week ago didn't stop me from training for and running in the New York City Marathon, which will be my 15th marathon since that fateful day when my daughter said, "Please, Ma, just run in the marathon," 15 years ago. I do, this is my theory, I do think that all these years of focusing on my bone health helped me avoid disaster when I fell last week. And I know that going forward in my life, I will pay even more attention to avoiding another fall. And if you want more information about fall prevention and really everything and anything to do with bone health, visit the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation website. Okay, after this very short break, we are going to get to those 3+ stories you just have gotta know about. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back with our 3+ stories, things that crossed across my desk this week that I feel you really need to know about. Some of it you may already know, so then view this as just a little gentle, loving nagging to pay even more attention. So, story number 1. Okay. So we know regular physical activity has many known health benefits. I just kind of talked about some of them before when I was telling you my fall story. And one of the benefits is that it might help you live longer. But what's still being determined are the types and duration, like how long, what kind of exercises should you do and how long should you do them for that offer the most protection. So there's a new study that just came out, just published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. And researchers found that while doing either aerobic exercise or strength training was associated with a lower risk of dying during the study's time frame, regularly doing both 1 to 3 hours a week of aerobic exercise and 1 to 2 weekly strength training sessions was associated with an even lower mortality risk. So that's what I wanted to really focus on with you. They go on to say in this article that switching from a very sedentary lifestyle to a workout schedule is comparable. Are you ready for this? This was mind-blowing to me. Is comparable to smoking versus not smoking. And that came right from a gentleman named Carver Coleman, who's the scientist and one of the authors of the study. So this is the latest evidence, right, in a trend showing the importance of strength training, specifically in longevity, and of course, in your overall health and well-being. Now, I just want to point something out to you, what I do and what I have done and what I am doing now. A little bit different. I always encourage everyone to start where you are, right? If you're going to start something new, start where you are, and then you build up from there. You can't start where your best friend is if she's been doing it for 20 years. So understand that. Start where you are, be kind to yourself, and then you build up from there. But I also believe very strongly in reassessing every few years. So, for example, I started on my own program when I hit 50. I told you my story, low bone density, really, needed to lose some weight, needed to get fitter to help me age better as I went on in years. And but every few years, I reassess because what was working for me at 50, may not be exactly the right thing at 65. Case in point, I am running in the New York City Marathon again. I'm so happy to be doing that. And I'm so grateful that my body is letting me do this again. And I hope to run it again next year. But I'm finding that I am putting more of an emphasis on strength training than I am on running. I do find I am running a little bit less mileage a week compared to previous years. But at the same time, I've dramatically increased the level of strength training, the amount of time I devote to strength training and resistance training than I have in previous years. I've always been an advocate, as you know, a loud voice for strength training to keep your bones strong, and have done many, many things using my own body weight, like push-ups and squats and the plank, which I love to do. And I will continue to do those, but I've really upped my game with strength training. I'm now actually going to a gym, something I haven't done in ever. Maybe ever, now that I think about it, and have started a new program with a trainer who's making sure that my form is correct, that I'm, using the right amount of weights for my goals. And I'm really finding that not only is it making me feel terrific and much stronger, and I feel like I'm seeing more definition in my body again, especially in my arms and legs, but it is also helping me with my running. But now that I'm seeing so much information coming out about how strength training not only is helping us to, protect our bones as we get older, but to also that it's helping us to increase our health span and our lifespan. And we also know, and I've talked about this in another episode about brain health, we also see studies about how strength training specifically will help with brain health as we get older. So I just am finding all of this extraordinary and really information I would love to see all of you pay very close attention to. I mean, the message is simple. See how you can incorporate more strength training and resistance training into your lives, even if it means having to go to a gym. And I think contrary to what people may think about maybe slowing down or easing up a little bit as we get older, it's really the reverse that is true and should be the goal. As we get older, we really need to work even a little bit harder on maintaining our muscle mass and our bone density And as you can see, the bonuses, I should say, of all of this are really quite incredible. One of the other scientists connected to this study, is a gerontologist at the Cleveland Clinic, said, and I quote, "The study is exciting because it does support having a mix of both aerobic and strength training." And this is definitely something I talk about with my patients all the time. And so, again, the message from this study and from this article and from all of the researchers connected is cardio plus strength training offers the most protection. Okay, so now we will move on to the next study. This one is about what I call, and again, you've heard me call it this, the third pillar of health and well-being. It really is. There's fitness, there's eating well, and then there is sleep. It is fascinating to me that 100 years ago, let's say, probably even less than that, scientists, the medical community just thought, oh yeah, you go to sleep and that's the end of that. Like nothing really big is happening up there as you're sleeping. And we know now that's so not true. We know what is going on in our brains physically while we are sleeping, especially when we hit that deep sleep stage, which is super duper important. I really try my best to get to. I can't always, control this, but I do try. And I'm always very happy when I see that I've gotten 2 hours of deep sleep throughout the night. It's just super important for our health, immunity systems, our brain health. Anyway, let's just talk about sleep. The point of this was an article and this new research was not so much about sleep and the brain, although it is super important and very connected, but this was more about your overall health and immunity system. So it says that chronic insufficient sleep can negatively affect immune cells, which may lead to inflammatory disorders and cardiovascular disease, according to a new study from the Icahn School of Medicine from Mount Sinai. More specifically, consistently losing an hour and a half of sleep a night potentially increases the risk. So this just was published this week. I just got it, and I was very eager to share this with you because it's the first study, apparently, that shows that sleep alters the structure of DNA inside the immune stem cells that produce white blood cells, also known as immune cells. And this can have a long-lasting impact on inflammation and can contribute to inflammatory diseases. Now, I've talked a lot about inflammation, what we also call inflammaging. It's something that can impact our health and well-being and our ability to age better in many, many, many different ways. Immune cells fight infection, but if the number of these cells gets too high and they overreact and cause inflammation. And this study is also the first to show that catching up on sleep does not reverse the effects of sleep disruption. So do you hear that message? If you think you can get away with getting quality sleep and enough sleep during the week because you're so busy, and then you catch up on weekends, that's not going to work. It needs to be consistent, and you have to do everything you can to make sure that your sleep is not disrupted during the night too, which is, I know, a big issue for a lot of people. The study also identifies the biological mechanisms that link sleep and the I'm going to hopefully not slur on this word, immunological health over the long term. It shows that in humans, and also there was a study done on mice, disrupted sleep has a profound influence on the programming of immune cells and the rate of their production, causing them to lose their protective effects and actually make infections worse. And these changes are long lasting. This is important because it's yet another key observation that sleep reduces inflammation, and conversely, that sleep interruption increases inflammation. And one of the lead authors of this study went on to say, and I quote, This work emphasizes the importance of adults consistently sleeping 7 to 8 hours a day to help prevent inflammation and disease, especially for those with underlying medical conditions. So I just really found this, and it goes on to talk about how they conducted the study, the number of people and the like, but it's really quite brilliant. And, clearly sleep deprivation, sleep disruption is really something that will, cause you to not age better. And that's why I really want you to pay attention to this study as well. Now, this study came out, and it's really something that we've known about, but again, it's just a new study talking about the importance of a form of exercise specifically for women, and specifically for women who are in menopause, traveling through the menopausal journey, and also postmenopausal. But it's Kegels, okay? Kegels, one of the best things you'll ever do for your body. So menopause, of course, we know introduces a lot of changes to your body. One of the most challenging is the weakening of your pelvic floor, the muscles, the ligaments, and the connective tissues that support the organs in your pelvis. When the pelvic floor weakens, it can cause symptoms ranging from incontinence, which is a huge issue, or prolapse, to intimacy problems as well, where you really, don't want to have sex because you're having major issues with incontinence. I mean, they're very much connected. One of the lead authors of this particular study, she's quoted in this article, the pelvic floor is located in the lowest part of your pelvis and supports your bladder, uterus, rectum, and vagina, and aids in the functioning of these organs. So you've got a lot of important organs that are counting on your muscles in your pelvic area to really work and to really be strong. And this is an area that most women don't think about. And what's so interesting is that Kegels can be done, and just a very quick story, they can be done anywhere, anytime. Very quick story here. I don't know, about 6 years ago, I was on the Dr. Phil show talking on behalf of Always Discreet. I was the spokesperson. And I was on talking about this exact problem. I was talking about the rate of incontinence, how 40% of women over 40, experience incontinence or a weak bladder and causing bladder leaks. I mean, this is a thing. This is not just a few amount of people. It's just not talked about because it can be very embarrassing for a lot of people. I really encourage people not to be, because it's so common. But luckily, there are things that you can do. And certainly before you hit that point, there are things you can be doing. And the most important thing you can do is by doing the Kegel exercises. So anyway, when I was on Dr. Phil, I said, hey, Dr. Phil, I could be doing the Kegel right now and you wouldn't know it, because that's how discreet this exercise is. So, I mean, not only does menopause cause or contribute to this possibly happening, but also if you're, pregnancy and childbirth and hormonal shifts, all of this can cause the tissues around the pelvic area to thin, and which of course then contributes to the weakening of the pelvic floor. So, this is just something that really, really, really needs to be focused on, because you don't want to go into your 60s and 70s experiencing urinary incontinence or pelvic organ prolapse, which my mother had, which is, you don't want this to happen. So what you can do is you just do the Kegel exercises, and it's so easy. You focus on it and you just pretend you're holding in urine, like hold that muscle for like 10 seconds and hold it and then let it go. And then hold it again for maybe 20 seconds. Just try your best. It's literally a contraction, and you hold it as tightly as you can. And just you do these throughout the day. It's just a mindful thing. You just have to remember to do them. So the purpose of my relaying this particular new study with you is to really as a reminder that you need to incorporate this into your daily lives. Just do it. Kegel exercises. So those were our 3 stories that I really want you to hear about this week. And hopefully you'll be able to incorporate a lot of the information that I shared into your daily lives. Sleep and strength training, along with cardio and those Kegel exercises. I think that your life will be changed so much for the better if you do. And this is a gentle nag, nag to myself as well. I want to make sure I continue to do all of those things too. Now, it is the episode is called 3+ things, so I do have a few little things I want to run by you because they were just some of them were so darling. Some of them were like, what? Just very quickly, the Washington Post had a story about how to take a pill, how your posture affects how you digest pills. So the next time you take a pain reliever, for example, you may want to consider how you're standing. Researchers at Johns Hopkins found that whether you're standing upright or leaning, as well as to which side you're leaning to, could affect how fast the contents of a pill are absorbed into your body. The bottom line is this: leaning to your right side after swallowing a pill could speed absorption by 13 minutes compared to staying upright. Leaning to the left is a very big mistake. It could slow absorption by more than an hour. Isn't that crazy? Remember this: taking a pill, stand up and lean to the right, and you'll speed it up. Who knew? Okay, here's another one I just thought this was so darling. I'm a big fan of kale, and I had to really laugh when I read this. But NBC News reported that babies smile over carrots and scowl over kale inside the womb, okay? Fetuses in the womb scowled after their mothers ate kale. But then researchers said they smiled after they ate carrots, according to a new study of around 100 pregnant women in England. The study offers a rare look at how fetuses respond to flavors in real time. How fun is that? Okay. And lastly, this story as reported in USA Today. Apples surpass potato chips as better snacks for mental health. Well, I think we probably know that they're a better snack to begin with than just about anything, but frequently snacking on fruits can make you feel better, while tasty but less healthy snacks such as potato chips may lead to psychological harm and memory problems, new research suggests. So next time you're really hankering for a little snack in between lunch and dinner, kind of think about your mental health and aim for that apple. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of 3+ things to know to age better. I certainly enjoyed doing the research, and I did my very best to try to kind of call it all together to make it easy for all of us to, digest and use. So thank you so much for joining me. See you next week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Gruff Talk, please do 2 things. First, share it with all your friends and family, and subscribe to Gruff Talk wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Until next time, remember this: we can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.